Pine Haven Cabin. Written by Michael Pennington and voiced by Michael Pennington. I had made the trip to Pine Haven, Arkansas this year early, and solo, because of work obligations that conflicted with my husband's. I drove the 4-hour trip and arrived around midnight. My husband Johnny was to come in the morning when he had gotten off work, and we were to spend the weekend at this beautiful wooded resort. He had rented a cabin for the weekend, as we did this every year at certain resorts the last part of October. This year had been different, however, because this was our first year to Pine Haven, which was located in the hills of northwest Arkansas. My name is Michelle, and I'm 21. I wasn't too enthused about being up here in the hills all by myself, but Johnny had assured me that Pine Haven was safe, and it sure is beautiful up here. I'm from southern Arkansas, and every year we make a trip to the northern tip of the state, to the Ozark Mountain Range, where Pine Haven is located. It's about 30 minutes from the Missouri line, nestled right into the Ozarks. I finally pulled in the resort around 12:15 a.m. and drove up a steep embankment into the mountains. The cabins soon came into view. They were absolutely stunning, and they were larger than I'd expected. Apparently, Johnny had spent some extra money on this weekend. I killed the ignition. Rain began to pelt the windshield with loud claps of thunder following. The wind was beginning to pick up, and it was going to be a good night to sleep. I grabbed the key that was under the rug in front of the door that Johnny had arranged for me. Once inside, I was mystified at the ambience and warmth of the cabin. It had a lot of custom woodwork and an overly large fireplace that I quickly lit to kill the chill in the air. I immediately took a picture of Johnny and me that I had packed and placed it on a crafted oak table in the living room. Outside, the wind howled as the storm moved in. Exhausted, I plopped down on the bed. I was so tired I didn't even bother undressing. I sent Johnny a text to tell him I had made it and to say good night and that I love you. When I laid down, it was about 12:30. Between the crackle of the fire and my exhaustion and the storm and coziness of the cabin, I went to sleep immediately. But it wasn't long before I woke. I couldn't be sure if thunder had woke me. I sat up in bed and took off my shoes, but didn't bother to take off my jeans or shirt. I finally lay back down and closed my eyes. Then I heard a knock on the door. Startled, I sat up, wondering who could be knocking near 1 a.m. Then I knew what was going on. Johnny had surprised me, and he had secretly drove the trip tonight to be with me. I hopped up and went for the door, but something stopped me from opening it. "Johnny?" There was no answer, just a clash of thunder, followed by a flash of lightning that lit up the entire cabin. "John, don't do this. Not cool, honey." I waited and still got no reply. I quietly went to the window and peeked out. Thankfully, I had turned the porch light on. All I could see, though, was my car in the woods. Nobody was at the door. I went for my phone and dialed his number, but I had no service. That's when I started to feel a little uneasy about this. The knock came again. I immediately went for the door to double check that it was locked, and it was. I was now timid. "I'm calling the police," I bluffed. Thunder clashed the silence, and I jumped. My heart sank into my stomach as I began to panic. It was time to look for a weapon. I picked up the fireplace poker, and I felt a little bit better. I sat back down on the bed, listening to the storm. 10 minutes must have passed. I stood, wondering if I should take another glance outside. Then I heard a noise upstairs. I froze stiff. Somebody had bumped into something upstairs. "Oh my God," I whispered. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't leave because somebody was outside, and I didn't have faith in making it to the car, and I don't think it was Johnny at this point. The upstairs was directly above my bed. Somebody tried to open the window now, their silhouette revealing outstretched arms on the outside of the window. Thank God it was locked. A knock came at the back door, then a noise, again from upstairs. There were 2 intruders. I kept silent, walking to the kitchen as slowly and carefully as I could. The knob to the back door rattled and somebody began to kick in the door. I covered my mouth, holding back a scream. The back door exploded. Somebody entered. It took everything I had in me to cower behind the kitchen wall that separated the living room. I saw a flashlight reflect off the walls. I tried to call my husband again, but the call did not go through. I clenched the poker tighter, knowing I was going to have to fight for my life. Hearing the footsteps grow closer, I hunkered down and held my breath. A figure walked into the living room. Lightning lit him up, revealing a quick glimpse of horrendous, god-awful, dark, stringy hair that was at least shoulder length. I began to cry as the figure stood still, looking around. Lightning flashed again, revealing his face. He had a mask on, and it was terrifying. It appeared to be demonic, with yellowish eyes and a hideous, latex, realistic-looking face. The mask had to be very expensive. If I were not able to see his arm, I would have thought this person may not even be human. I knew if he turned on the light, I would be seen and possibly killed. But he didn't. He approached the kitchen. I gripped the poker as tight as I could, and I came out with a rush. I swung it as hard as I could, the tip landing across his face and upper chest region. He groaned in pain and went to his knees. It had been a direct blow. I swung again, striking him in the back as he went down to all fours. I could literally feel a hole open in his back from the second blow of that poker digging in. I stood there, my hand shaking, lightning flooding the room. I finally dropped the poker. I had to get out of here. I grabbed my belongings and went straight for the door, prepared to see the second person, but I did not, thankfully. I was able to get in the car and escape. To my shock, I saw my husband's car parked up the road, but he was not inside. It looked as though it had been driven to a quick stop and somebody had kidnapped him or taken him. I felt sadness and panic. The attackers must have been waiting for him when he entered the resort. When I got service, I dialed 911. It's been a full 24 hours since the man tried to kill me. I'm back home in southern Arkansas, and police are investigating, but sadly, my husband is still missing. I've been waiting by the phone, my nerves on end, a deep sadness overwhelming me. I just want to see him walk through the door. I haven't slept since I've made it home. The phone rang and I answered it eagerly. It was Pine Haven area code. "Michelle Birch?" a man's voice asked. "Yes, that's me." "My name is Detective O'Keen from the Delaware County Sheriff's Office. I'm afraid I have some bad news for you, ma'am." My heart sank upon hearing this. I was already delirious and I felt like I was losing my mind. "Please don't say he's dead," I said. "Please, please, please don't say he's dead. Ma'am, I need to ask you a personal yet very relevant question." "Okay," I nearly whispered. tears streaming my eyes. Does your husband have a life insurance policy out on you? Yeah, $500,000. Miss Birch, your husband is very much alive. He's a little banged up, but your husband was the attacker and was working with an accomplice who we have detained as well. Your husband is being charged with aggravated assault and possibly more serious charges in regards to this. It seems to have all been a setup to have you killed.